At 16 years old, her family found out she was pregnant. Their response was to pack her bags and put her out the door. She spent the next 17 years raising a son completely alone. No partner, no love life, nothing but a distant uncle who became her anchor and a quiet, bone-deep determination to survive. And then, through a single accidental introduction, two single parents meeting because their teenagers happened to be dating, the universe began settling a 17-year-old debt. What unfolded over the next 14 months was the kind of love most people spend their entire lives searching for. The kind that does not arrive on a first date or a dating app. The kind that arrives quietly, sideways, through a door you were not even watching. This is not a revenge story in the way you might expect. This is something more powerful. This is what happens when the universe has been watching someone endure and endure and endure, and finally decides it is time to pay back everything that was taken. Let me take you all the way back to where this started. To understand why this story hits the way it does, you need to understand where she came from. She grew up in a household where religion was not just practiced, it was a cage. Every rule, every boundary, every version of her own identity handed down from above, never questioned, never negotiated. Normal teenage life, freedom, mistakes, the ordinary fumbling of growing up, none of it was available to her. And then, at 15, she made the most ordinary, extraordinary mistake a teenager can make. She got pregnant. Her family's response was immediate and absolute. They did not gather around their daughter in her most frightening moment. They did not pray for her. They packed her bags and showed her the door. Pregnant, 16 years old, nowhere to go. A distant uncle she barely knew agreed to take her in. Over the years that followed, that man became the only real father figure she had ever known. She had her baby. She built a life from nothing. And she never looked back because her family had made certain there was nothing worth looking back at. Fast forward 16 years, she is 32 years old now. Her son is 16, the same age she was when her entire world collapsed. She has built a quiet, functional, decent life. She works, she parents, she survives. But romance, real love, genuine intimacy with another person, those things have largely passed her by. A handful of first dates over the years. A couple of one-night stands that she describes, without drama, as nothing particularly great. Nothing ever stuck. Nothing ever felt right. And somewhere along the way, she stopped expecting it to. Her world was her son. She told herself that was enough. She told herself that long enough and hard enough that she had started to believe it. And then her son started dating a girl, sweet, 16, by all accounts lovely, and the girl's father wanted to meet his daughter's boyfriend's mother. Just two parents. An afternoon. A simple introduction. That was all it was ever supposed to be. Sometimes, the most life-altering things announce themselves as nothing at all. The moment they met, something shifted. She cannot point to the exact second. Maybe it was how he talked about his daughter. Maybe it was his laugh. Maybe it was simply the fact that for the first time in a very long time, she was standing in front of someone who understood her life without her having to explain it. He was a young, single parent too. Same age, same story, different details. He just got it. They exchanged numbers as parents do, casual and unremarkable. And then she called him, twice in 1 week. Both times they talked for more than 2 hours and neither one wanted to hang up first. You know what that is? That is not polite small talk between co-parents. Two strangers who cannot stop talking to each other, twice in a week, losing track of time both times, neither wanting to end it first, that is chemistry. The real kind. The kind people pay for on expensive dates and perfectly engineered first impressions and never actually find. And these two found it completely by accident, between school pickups, because their teenagers happened to be in love. One weekend, both their kids were away on a school trip. She called him. She asked if he could come help with a project they had discussed. They both knew perfectly well that was just the excuse. He came over, they sat and talked. He kissed her, and then they moved to her bedroom. And here is where she simply runs out of language. She describes it as leaving reality. As feeling a physical ecstasy she genuinely did not know she was capable of. As losing track entirely of time, of sequence, of everything except the moment she was living in. Afterward, they lay together. He stayed the night. Not because she pushed him to, because neither of them wanted the night to end. In the morning, she made him breakfast. She told him she had never felt anything like that before in her life. He laughed and said he hadn't had that much fun in God knows how long. And she lay there, looking at this man, kind, funny, present, easy in a way she had never experienced, and she felt it. The very beginning of something she had been told, quietly, by years of silence, was not coming for her. But here is where the universe decided to complicate things. Because the man she was falling for, his daughter was still dating her son. And that wait would not leave her alone. Every time she imagined asking him out properly, she thought about her boy. About what it would mean for a 16-year-old to find out his mother was pursuing his girlfriend's father. About the fact that no matter how the kid's relationship ended, there was no version of this that did not carry consequences for him. Either she'd be dating his girlfriend's dad while they were still together, awkward, invasive, or his ex-girlfriend's dad after they broke up, messy, loaded, painful in a different way. So what do you do with that? You bury it. That is what she did. Whatever was quietly building between them, she buried it. They made the responsible choice, agreed to move on, never speak of it, let the chapter close. And for 11 months, that is exactly what happened. She went back to her routine, back to the quiet. She told herself she was fine, she was not fine, but she was a good mother. And right then, that was what mattered most. 11 months later, her phone buzzed. A text from him. Just 3 words, "How have you been?" she answered. The chemistry was immediate, like nothing had been buried at all, like the 11 months of silence had been minutes. They went back and forth for a few days, feeling each other out. And then he mentioned that their kids had broken up, that they had ended things well, still shared friend groups, that he had nothing to do that weekend. Neither did she. Coffee, Friday afternoon. They both knew exactly what that meant. When they ended up back at his place that evening, everything they had tried to leave behind came rushing back, times 10. But listen, what happened after that is the part that rewrote everything. They lay down together and started talking, and they kept talking. About their kids, their childhoods, their wounds, their hopes. About stupid things, word pronunciations they hated, inside jokes inventing themselves in real time. They talked until the sun came up. Then slept, woke up and kept talking. She arrived Friday night. She left Sunday afternoon. Her clothes were in a ball in the middle of his floor the entire weekend because neither one of them wanted to stop long enough to leave that room. The morning she got home, she sat down to breakfast with her uncle, the man who had been her anchor for 17 years, and her phone buzzed. She picked it up and read, "Good morning, beautiful, how'd you sleep?" Her uncle looked right at her and said, "That is a big smile." "Who texted you?" She lied. Said it was a friend. But think about what just happened there. The man who had known her since she was a pregnant 16-year-old with nowhere to go, who had watched her build herself from nothing, who knew her better than anyone alive, he saw it on her face immediately. Because this was different. She was in love. She knew it the way you know something you have spent months trying not to know. He had remembered, in passing conversation, that she used to love getting Chinese food for breakfast. And he had ordered it for her the next morning without being asked. He had stayed up an entire night talking to her like she was worth knowing. She had spent 17 years making herself small, managing, surviving, being the capable one, getting through. And now someone was looking at her like she was the whole story, not the footnote. She had been the footnote for so long she had almost forgotten she was allowed to be more. A few months later, she did something she had never done in 33 years of living. She got a boyfriend, her very first. They made it official. 2 months in, on an ordinary evening at his place, dinner, then his bedroom, then the quiet afterward, she melted into his arms, looked up at him, and said the 3 words she had been holding inside her entire adult life. "I love you." He paused. That brief, terrible silence where his face said he had heard her but did not know what to say back. Have you ever said something completely true at the worst possible moment? That is exactly what this was. She panicked immediately. She started backtracking, told him maybe she was just riding the emotion, that he didn't have to say it, that maybe she didn't even know what she meant. He told her she did not have to backtrack, that he was genuinely glad she felt that way. Before he could say anything more, she cut the conversation off, told him it was getting late, and went home. She got in her car, drove down the road, pulled over, and sat in the dark and cried, not because he had hurt her. Because she had allowed herself to be fully seen for the first time in her life, and she had absolutely no idea if that was safe. She ignored his texts for most of the next day. She knew she was doing it. She could name the pattern, she had worked on it in therapy, recognized it, mapped its edges. When something feels real and fragile, she disappears. She makes herself small before someone else can make the decision for her. The knowing did not stop the doing. But then he sent a message that said he missed her and really hoped to see her that night. And she decided, what the hell? She showed up. You know what she did? She showed up anyway. And somewhere during dinner, she reached across the table, took his hand, and told him the truth about the abandonment issues, about the self-destruction, about the cycle of running from the things she wanted most. He listened. He was patient. He was steady in a way she had always needed and never let herself have. They went back to his place. Valentine's Day. She was drifting off to sleep in his arms when he said quietly into the dark, "Love you, beautiful." She stopped. She looked up at him. He looked back and said, "You don't have to say it back." And she said, "But what if I want to?" He told her to go ahead. She said, "I love you too." And then she started crying. 17 years of waiting. And she was finally, completely home. She stayed up that whole night, too alive to sleep, writing about the moment while he slept beside her. She mentioned almost as an aside that she was already getting giddy thinking about putting her name in front of his last name. That is the kind of thing a person writes when they have arrived somewhere they genuinely believed was not meant for them. Her family chose their rules over their daughter at 16 years old. They handed her the hardest possible beginning and closed the door behind her. And for 17 years, she carried that. She worked, she survived, she raised a remarkable young man, she kept showing up even when there was nobody showing up for her. The universe watched all of that. And then it put the right person directly in her path through a door she never saw coming, their kids dating. A simple introduction between parents, a conversation that refused to end. That is cold karma, not the kind that destroys, the kind that restores. The kind that finds you long after you stopped waiting, locates the wound that was never treated, and quietly, without announcement, makes it right. She deserved every second of it, and something tells me she is just getting started. If this story moved you, drop a like and subscribe. We bring you stories like this every single day.